Love and gratitude are the highest vibrations. That's something that our guest today said as we neared the end of our podcast. I think that's a great way to open. Love and gratitude are the highest vibrations. Kelvin, my friend, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome, my friend. It's wonderful. It's bright and cheery. Sunny. It's not 95 here in upstate New York. And life's okay. And I just, hung out with you in the morning doing a podcast. And that's a really good start to a really good day.
Awesome. Things are great here. Yeah, it's good. This will come out as usual on a Monday, but we usually hang out on Fridays. So it's good to see your face on both sides of the weekend this time around, because we just recorded the last one on Friday and we're recording this one on Monday. And, I don't know about you, but my vibe on Monday, late morning, early afternoon is definitely different than my Friday vibe.
Yeah. But it's you're good today. You're up early and you're doing stuff and you're actually pretty motivated today.
Yeah, I got off the racquetball court, came here, had some breakfast, and then we sat down to eat. Or sat down to talk. I had breakfast, then sat down to eat. That'd be interesting, right?
Some days go better than others.
Well, our guest today is Julie Coraccio of Reawaken Your Brilliance. Wow. The talk muscle is not doing well. Let me try that again.
It is Monday after all.
Today is Julie Coraccio of Reawaken Your Brilliance. Not Awaken Your Brilliance. That was probably somebody else's website. She is a declutterer, and that is your stuff, your mind, your spirit. Just get all the garbage out. And we had a very good, fairly wide-ranging podcast that kind of draws in all of our, I think it touches on most of our recent flashpoints. We talk about responsibility. We talk about mindfulness. We talk about gratitude. We talk about love. And yeah, I think we probably have a couple of podcast ideas from her as well.
She was fun. She had good spirit.
And she's in Raleigh, which is a city we like. They have hills there.
That's where you did.
I ran some of those hills. So I did the half marathon. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably mention that we're brought to you by Audible. If you want a free audiobook, a free month at Audible, go to audibletrial.com/JKWD. That's audibletrial.com/JKWD. Or just whip out your phone. Whip it out. And, start a text to 500-500 and make that text say JKWD. That's audibletrial.com/JKWD or text JKWD to 500-500. And we could drop some music right about here. Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go.
Anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. I need your topic.
Clutter.
Yeah, because
Well, no, he means not just that you handle clutter. He means he needs to
if we could do a mind meld,
and put it in his space right now.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm a guy who can declutter my office.
Well, but clutter's more, I look at clutter much differently than most people. It's not just the physical stuff. It's mental, like what's your monkey mind? What's causing you anxiety? It's emotional. Where do you have a knee-jerk reaction? Are you always bursting in anger? Or are you withholding your feelings? It can be relationships. Who can you not say no to? Who is not really supportive of you? It can be energetic, which might be a little too weird. I don't know you guys enough to know, like, how does your space feel? Is other people's energy getting in there? So for me, I look at a very holistic, and most people don't look at it that way.
And all of that applies.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah. I tell you a story, but who's got that kind of time? Another time. But anyway, well, excellent. That is good. So we're glad to have your checked into your website and stuff before, just to get a feel for you and kind of your energy and stuff. And of course, Josh always does that because he's really the brains of the two of the show here.
Well, I checked you guys out, and I'm sorry about your dog, Josh. I was like, I'll listen to that another time. I can't listen to it now. If I did, I'd be a hot mess. So
yeah, I think we mostly held it together for that episode.
Yeah, because that was like the day. The
yeah, it was the day after. But yeah. So Julie, welcome. How do you come by this? I guess we kind of dove in a little bit there. How do you come by this holistic approach? Like, where did this come from? Is this?
I would say it's a combination of things.
Okay.
I have a podcast, but prior to that, I had an internet TV show called Reawaken Your Brilliance. Ended up taking my business name from that. And so it was a combination of that, working with clients, and I'll never forget, I had a couple clients. They said, okay, I need you to help me clear clutter and get organized. And when I went in their house, they'd say, can you just listen to me? I said, of course, you're the client. It's whatever you want to do. And because of my own spiritual training and background, that's what makes the most sense to me. And so I kind of had this aha moment that, okay, clearing clutter is much more challenging, much more rewarding than getting organized. And if you clear your clutter, that's the tough part. The getting organized is kind of the easy thing. And so learning that and realizing and interviewing other people, it's like clutter is anything that prevents you from creating the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And so it's so much more than the physical. And then other people weren't talking about that. And again, because of my background, I think, well, we have to talk about spiritual clutter. It's, the inside reflects the outside and vice versa. So how are we going to get people to clear their clutter so they can share their gifts with the world?
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that because I could tell you stories. But just for the sake of clarification, let's back up and define the spiritual from where you are, because we have a very diverse audience and they won't all have the same anchor as far as
reference.
Spirituality is concerned.
Sure. Well, you can also substitute the word religious. Whatever, when I'm talking mental, emotional, spiritual, it sounds better with spiritual than religious. Really, truly, whatever fits you. So for me, that's your soul, your inner voice. And so whatever speaks to you. So an example of spiritual clutter would be gossip. Why are you gossiping? Because if you're focusing on others, that's so easy to blame and judge and sit there feeling superior instead of, well, where can I improve as a person? And so whether you have a spiritual take on life or a religious take on life, that hopefully will apply to you. Or whether you're a Buddhist or you're an atheist, to me, it's really about your soul and inner wisdom, inner feeling. Does that make sense?
I can go with that, yeah.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot recently. I work in news as a day job, so this stuff invades my life a lot. But Kelvin and I, when we talk on the podcast, often lately, more often than in the past, we've been coming back to blame and responsibility because I don't know if it's all social media. I think it's definitely spiked in the last couple of years, but there seems to be a lot more blame and a lot less personal responsibility in the world these days, and I'm wondering if you're seeing that reflected in your clients and just in kind of the world around you, if you're seeing the same thing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's really important to me and that I stress with my clients is personal responsibility. It doesn't matter who's in the Oval Office, because you create your reality, you create your happiness, and you create whether or not you're suffering. It doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter if your neighbor stinks. You allow it to either invade your peace of mind or not. So you have that choice. And so we have to remember everyone's coming from a wound. And so that's the one thing. Don't watch the news anymore. I try to read it as little as possible. Doesn't mean I'm uninformed, because trust me, in some way, shape, or form,
this is hard.
Something it will reach me. But I have decreased as a business owner. You have to be on social media. You guys have a podcast. You have to be on social media. But I've been able to take a step back. I don't post as much personally, and I don't engage. I'm not going to change people's point of views. I can drop what I believe are my pearls of wisdom. Maybe it plants a seed, maybe it doesn't. But we're all coming from our wounds. And it's, again, easier to be a victim. Well, because so-and-so did this, I'm a victim. And in general, what I would say is I love clients that are ready to take responsibility and take action. It's a challenge when others aren't. But, again, that's a process. I look back on my own life. I don't remember how old I was, and my younger brother, who's not particularly spiritual, said to me one day, "You see yourself as a victim." And that I heard him. For the first time in my life, I heard him. I'm like, wow, he's right. What does that mean? What do I do from here? And that really was a springboard for my platform for self-discovery and enhancing what I term my spiritual life. And so, are you open to hearing it? 5 years earlier, I wouldn't have been open to it. So I kind of view my clients as wherever you are on the journey, we can meet you. I think you have to be prepared, though, to do self-examination and then to take action. It's kind of awareness plus action equals change. If you don't have those components, then your life's going to stay the same. And I think where people get tripped up is, like, for example, take emotional clutter of jealousy. Am I saying don't ever get jealous? Of course not. We're all going to get jealous. But what's important is, do you stay stuck in jealousy, or are you able to move past it, move forward? And I think many of us are stuck. And so we don't move forward, and we get whatever rat wheel race we're moving around, whatever clutter it is, we stay stuck and we don't move forward.
Have you noticed a pattern in what helps people to move forward, gets them unstuck?
That's a great question.
Or how do you kind of try to nudge that?
Well, being honest and being direct, and also being compassionate and holding space and listening. For example, I'm working with a client now, and she is having to do a big downsizing move, and she has held on to furniture and art and other things from a relative. Well, it's going on almost a decade. And so this causes her great stress, and the deeper issue is the relationship with the person and standing up for herself and the jealousy of the other person. So all these different components were coming in. So things that we would talk about, okay, what's your plan of action? When she gets upset at you, how are you going to handle that? What is your self-care? And so creating a plan, giving people the tools to be able to say, okay, now I'm finally setting a boundary and saying no. And being a sounding board and saying, yeah, you know what? You are worthy. You are good enough. You are loved. And you don't have to take this crap from someone. And so it's kind of working on self-esteem, kind of working on action, and coming up with, well, if this happens, how will I respond? Because we get more benefit when we respond instead of reacting.
I like respond versus react. I used to react. I mean, I had like trigger nerve-ending responses for stuff, and I have trained myself, for the most part, away from an immediate response. Every once in a while, one of them little suckers will sneak up on me and stick a pin in my nerve.
But you're not alone. Yeah.
That gets to be crazy. But I've tried not to do that. But the whole clutter conversation you're having right here, it hits me so. I'm gonna tell a brief but silly story. It's relevant and it's not relevant, and you know how that goes. But downstairs in my living room, I have a stereo cabinet. It's not really a stereo cabinet. It's a massive piece of wooden furniture that I had built in the Philippines, second marriage, third child, stuff like that. Anyway, I had someone who was helping me come through to modernize my space in the house, and they were interior designer. And she started talking about, if we could get rid of that stereo cabinet, because we're talking, it's 12 foot.
Oh, wow.
Wow. It's 6 pieces. And when she said those words, I started to cry. I don't know where it came from. It was like, and now I'm standing on the floor going, what's wrong with you? It's a structure of wood. And I had no idea, had never had any concept at the time of what memories or triggers would be connected with that piece of furniture. And it's still there, by the way. I haven't gotten rid of it yet. But still, so that may be a therapy moment. I don't know. But those types of things, and do we develop that kind of attachment or relationship with just like regular clutter? I call myself sentimental, but it may be just messed up on another level,
No, you're not alone. The thing that people confuse, or what we do, is we take an object and we put our memories on the object, but our memories in our heart are in our head. And so that's sometimes where we get confused and get tripped up. I don't know if there were certain memories associated with your strong memories associated with your stereo. That's typically not where people hold on to things. That might be pictures or mementos. And so we confuse that and say, well, if I get rid of this physical item, then I'm going to lose my memory. Or will someone be upset if I let that go because they gave that to me and they gave that to me from love? And what I always tell people is release it. If they love you, they want you to do what would make you happy, and let it go and move forward. And blame me if someone I tell my clients this all the time, if someone gets upset with you, what's the reality or what's the likelihood someone's going to come into your home and they gave you something 10, 15 years ago or a year ago and say, where is that? Why did you get rid of it? Could it happen? Absolutely. I think it would be rare. And if it does happen, fantastic. Then that allows you to have a conversation. Well, I got rid of it because it wasn't my taste or whatever, and how you have an honest conversation. Because in a really healthy, strong, good relationship, you'd be able to say, hey, I love this, but it no longer serves me. I want to give it to someone in need. And if someone's strong and healthy and knows their self, they can be, oh, fantastic. I'm glad someone else is going to love it and get use out of it. Now, if we have our issues, which we all do, then that might cause someone to be upset. And so then I would look at that as being great. Then that allows you to have an honest and open conversation, and who knows how your relationship could change for the positive if you have that conversation.
Cool.
So let's back up a little bit maybe. How did you get into this space in the first place?
Well, the truth of the matter was, and it'll be 10 years that I've been doing this next year, I was at a really horrible job. It was the worst job I'd ever had in my life. I worked for nonprofits, and I was a director of development, so grant writing and development is my background, and the job was horrible. And I used to joke that you could bring in, I like sound healing, so I have sound crystal bowls, and I used to joke, if you would bring the crystal bowl to work, it would explode into pieces from all the negative energy. So I was in this awful job and figured out pretty quickly, okay, wrong move, and I don't believe in right and wrong, and we can talk about that later. Okay, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to stay here. And so I ended up staying for a year, and during that time, I planned my business. And so I said to myself, what could I do that I'd be good at, that would utilize my skills, I could make money, and that I could support people? And so after examining that for a couple months, I came up with organizing. And as I have developed and grown, I'm more passionate about supporting people and clearing their clutter than getting organized. Because again, as I mentioned, earlier, clearing your clutter to me is more significant than getting organized. Because yeah, you can organize clutter, but has your life changed? So I'd rather get you to clear all your clutter, manage it, and move forward.
Did you spend a lot of time doing that for your own space?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay.
Every year, I'm laughing. I'm in my office and I can see my little list. I've been married. It'll be 5 years in September. And my first year of marriage, my husband got a pass. But for, probably the past 15 or 20 years, I go through everything I own. So even before I started this business, it was something that I was doing. And I suggest this to my clients as well. Go through everything you own every single year. When you're working with someone who hasn't cleared clutter in 20, 30, 40 years, that's a lot of stuff. And I get annoyed with shows like Hoarders. I don't even know if it's still on because it's so unrealistic. They didn't clean it in 48 minutes. There were, 3 weeks of a team of people, a month, clearing everything, working with the therapist, blah, 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 blah. And so people have this misconception of the time it's going to take. It took you years to accumulate it. It's not going to go away in a day. So that's one thing I suggest to people. And once you do a big annual purge, the maintenance is easy. But I do practice what I preach. And can I improve? Absolutely. And I would say to people, I don't consider myself a minimalist. And that's not right or wrong. That's not just who I am. I choose to come into my home and feel comfortable. We have 3 cats. 2 of them are black. It's never going to be completely clean. Martha Stewart would not be happy if she showed up to my house. And I'm okay with that because I'm happy. When I come home, I can relax. I have peace of mind. I can create where I am in my office. And that's what I need to do.
How do you make the mental space when things pick up a little bit?
I'm kind of don't understand.
Let's say it's August, the cats are shedding a little more. You're trying to maybe plan a vacation, maybe get a little cooler, for a week or so, and your business really picked up because people are trying to move right before the kids go back to school. They want to get that move in before they're in a new district. So now you've got all this stuff going on. Where do you find that mental space, that spiritual space? How do you declutter for you?
Mentally, I meditate. And I want people out there, if you don't meditate, don't think that it's sitting like this with your fingers and on a zafu, because I could never learn that meditation. To me, mowing the lawn is meditative. I love mowing the lawn. I feel like I do a brain dump. I can truly relax. And so I have a mindfulness practice. And I would encourage all of your listeners, find something that works for you. It doesn't have to be what someone else is doing, but that allows me to keep centered. It allows me to keep grounded. And then things that used to throw me off, like, oh my God, how am I going to take a deep breath and trust that it'll work itself out. Do I need to ask the support? This is a great example. So, honey, I need you to do laundry this week. I'm super busy, and he has gotten a lot better and kind of picking up on that and doing the things that can support me at home if the business, for example, has gone crazy for a week. And, and I'm fairly planned and fairly organized, and I can give a heads up and say, okay, it'll be a crazy week. Can you kind of step it up? And then it'll be back to normal. Because, again, I don't mind doing laundry. I'm fine with that. And so the mindfulness practice is really important. I always allow my day. I like to use the term plan for an opportunity as opposed to planning for an emergency. I don't have a jam-packed schedule because I can't control life. I can't control clients. I can't control people. So I allow that space in my schedule, so then less likely that if things get tripped up that it's going to cause me to have a meltdown.
Right. I allow that space in my schedule too, but I don't think I call it the same thing you do, and it gets eaten up by non-emergencies. And later it's like, wonder where that day went.
But it's being aware of your time. Okay. And, we've been talking about social media. That can be a complete time sucker. I mean, people can lose hours on that and aren't even aware of it. And so if that happens to you, you might want to have a timer. Okay. Unless you're in the zone writing, which I completely get that. But okay, if I have 2 hours, maybe I need to check in and have a timer and a half hour to see where I am if I've got to stay on point and on schedule.
Yeah, and I know that there are, especially online, there are tools for that. I don't know about an equivalent in the PC world, but in the Mac world, there's an app called Freedom, which you can block either the entire internet for a set amount of time, or you can block certain websites for that amount of time. And if you need to visit those websites for research or whatever, then you actually have to shut your computer off in order to kill the app during the time.
And that's a great suggestion. Because if you're someone that's surfing and does that, it's about awareness and knowing yourself, and then what action can I take?
Right. Go ahead, Kelvin.
So how do you, what's your process? How do you find your clients, or they find you? Do you meditate, and then when you wake up in the morning, they're standing at the door going, "Yo, I got guided here." Which
that's exactly it. You found my secret. It's truly a combination of things. I have pretty good SEO, so people find the website. Mm-hmm. That's one way. Through the podcast. Through podcast interviews. I had got a client who heard me on a podcast the other day, mm-hmm. and then the podcast, and then this has decreased for me. My business has kind of changed, and it's more what I'm really passionate about, and I'm retooling my business to introduce next year, but is doing life coaching and clearing your clutter and all that. And so that has expanded more, and I have more people across the country, across the world, and do that online. So it's a variety of ways that they find me. And then the spiritual component that I have of that is I trust that I'm going to get the clients that I can support and serve. And if I don't have the right client, then hopefully I can refer them to someone. But what I do is I offer a 15-minute free conversation, because I have a good idea now. Do I have the skills that can support and help you? And I want to make sure we're a good match personality-wise, because I think that no matter what you do, that's so important, because most likely you're going to be sharing intimate details with me, and you need to feel comfortable with me, because I would ask that you'd be able to have an honest conversation, because if you're not honest with me, then I can't support you in what you need.
So I noticed one of those services listed on your website is essentially errand running. How did that come about?
So I'm sorry, which service?
Did I see that you'll run errands if necessary?
Yes, yes.
How did that come about, and obviously you do that more for local clients, I'm guessing, than
completely for local clients, because I've worked for some people that I work with whatever's going to work with you. Some people like to literally be by my side, and I encourage that if all possible, because we want to build your clearing clutter and organizing muscles. But I also have clients that are super busy. So it's, and have the time, have the resources to be able to pay me to do that. Be like, can you just go take care of that? And so then I don't have to worry about that. And, that is a great example. What's more important to you, time or money? When I'm working with clients and they're like, oh, I want to sell stuff. And so that's one of the things I ask. Is it more important for you to get money right now, your time, or your peace of mind to get it all out? And so asking yourself those questions can kind of dictate, well, this is the next step that I have to take. So if someone's really busy, it's worth their peace of mind to say, here, please go take care of that.
Gotcha. Are your clients primarily local, primarily internet? Do you have a good mix?
It's a mix. For the organizing, it's mainly local, though I do work with people on virtually. And then coaching is mainly online now.
I do that. Now, so you started out with declutter, and you've kind of expanded into the other areas. I am particularly, I bought a book last week about what clutter says about you or something like that. I'm like, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So like, you're in here first, you have a chance to influence me before them. But talk to me about just that thing about what the clutter in our lives is really saying. When you get a new client and they have a clutter issue, how do you go through them with that to see what it is they've got, and how do you help them assess it?
Well, for example, say if I'm working with an organizing client, so I'm in the physical space, things are naturally going to come up. Conversations are naturally going to come up. Here's an example of a client. So I had a client with a stack of papers that was probably 2-3 feet tall. And so I said, okay, as we're clearing our clutter, what are these papers? Oh, those are articles that I'm going to send people. Okay. And as I'm sifting through these, these are old. These aren't, from this month. So what's going on there? And asking more questions and then the client, because we all have the answers inside. It's not my job to tell someone what to do. They have the wisdom they need. I view my job as supporting them to bring out that wisdom. Mm-hmm. So as I'm talking to the client, she starts to cry. And she realizes, I've been holding on to these articles to send to people I love because I was afraid that if I didn't send them the articles, if I didn't keep in communication with them, that they wouldn't love me anymore. And as soon as she expressed it, she knew that was a false statement, and we recycled the whole pile of papers. And so, again, like as you're decluttering, then things are naturally going to come up. I've had clients share with me that they've been abused by clearing clutter. Clutter serves a purpose. There are many different purposes it can serve, but as you clear that, and that's why it's important to be in a good space, to be with someone you trust that's not going to judge you. I've had clients share with me before that they felt judged, and so that's the worst thing that you can do for someone. And so if I'm doing life coaching online, for instance, or virtually with someone, the client that I was talking about, you think, okay, it's just a move. That's just like a check sheet and do this and do that, and then you're done. Well, it's more than that. It was the relative that hadn't come and gotten all her stuff that they were holding on to, and about standing up and having boundaries. And so just with active listening and a natural conversation and in asking questions, you discover that. And it's really individual. I don't believe in this one size fits all. And when people get books that, my podcast came out when Marie Kondo's book came out at the same time, and I haven't read it, and it's helped a lot of people, which is fantastic, but it's not for everyone. And there's no good or bad in that. It's just, but when I have a client who says, I read this book, and why can't I change? Why can't I improve? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. That wasn't the right fit for you. So let's figure out what is.
Yeah, I used to work at a gym, and we often every time a new fad workout or a new fad diet would come up, we'd always reassess, and the question was, what's the best workout regimen? What's the best diet? And the answer is always, it's the one that you'll stick to.
Yes. I, for instance, that's a great point. I did Whole30, did not cheat for 3 different times and lost 4 pounds. And I thought I was going to kill someone because I did it. And how are these people losing 15, 20 pounds? And what worked for me was month by month cutting out something and adding something in. And I'm down 14 pounds because I had to come up with what worked for me. And there were great things about the Whole30, and I learned stuff from it. But ultimately, it wasn't the right fit for me.
Right. And so, I mean, the same with you mentioned having a mindfulness practice. Some people can sit. I'm a distance runner. That's where I get mine. If I need to do it off of the road, we have a float. We have a place that does float tanks. So, that's a great once in a while thing. But, mine's running. Kelvin, I think yours is sitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're practicing.
I can sit. Yeah. I know. That or listening to jazz. Yeah, I do. I've got a space in my house for meditation. I sit there and my brain knows, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. I don't do. I walk sometimes. We have a nice little lake here, and I'll walk around that with a friend of mine. And sometimes it's not so much the meditation. Well, I guess it is. It's just kind of clearing the mind. It's just walking. Exactly. We're dodging goose poop. We're looking at the lake. We're listening to the birds sing and stuff. And it's just not doing what we normally do that gives my brain a chance to do something else. But occasionally, I used to have a decent meditation practice where I was actually, it was awesome. I could sit there, and for a while I was having these 3D color meditations. It was wild. I got to figure out what happened to those. Some of them were cool, and it was really good. So, you talk about clutter. I know there's my mind is always going, and I used to have I write. And I used to have times when I would sit and information would just flood me. It was coming faster than I could write it. It was awesome. And then somewhere along the line, that channel slowed up a little bit. So I know there's something, there's some shrapnel in the communication somewhere. But I still do okay, and I still write. So those kinds of things. How do you take someone from there's something wrong with me, which is, we all know that's all the wrong language because I'm a life coach also, to what it is they need to do, what it is they need to clear up. How do you, I know, you have your 15-minute conversation just to see, if you've got the, compatible needs, skills and stuff. But from that point on, let's say that you've got a client and you can help them. How'd your process go from there?
I have them fill out an assessment and ask a couple different questions. And so that kind of gives me a springboard to go from. And so I'll read the assessment, check it out. And when we do the 15-minute conversation, I'm also taking notes. And again, if you're active listening, people are telling you a lot. And so I take notes from that. Like, for instance, the client I just started with, I sent her the assessment and I said, if you don't fill it out, that's okay, because I took notes during our conversation. She didn't fill it out, which was fine, but I had enough. I was like, okay, these are the 3 main items based on what she said where we need to get started. And so I looked down and I said, okay, this I think needs to be the biggest chunk we talk about. We need to start the conversation on the other 2. And then again, it's really organic. If you're listening, you're paying attention, people will reveal themselves to you and where they're struggling. And she might say, okay, hold on a second. Whose voice is that that's telling you that? Is that yours? Or could that be someone in your family that's always told you that? Or has society told you that? Or has a teacher told you that? And so let's back the bus up for a second. Where is that coming from? And again, it's a very organic process. So let's tackle this for a while. And then when I'm talking, I'm also taking notes as they talk. So it's, again, gathering all that information. And then I'm a big fan of homework. And so all my clients have homework in between our sessions. And again, this isn't school. You're not going to be graded, but things aren't going to change if you don't do your homework. And I love it when I get an email. I got an email this morning. I did this. And I was like, fantastic. And I said, look at that. Acknowledge you set the intention for this. You stepped up. You took action. And the universe, God, whatever you'd like to call it, stepped up and met you. Now keep moving forward with that. Again, don't say stuck in the molasses. And again, be stuck for a little bit, but don't stay stuck. You got to move forward at some point, or you don't, because really it's your choice. And that's another thing I think that's really important. We always have a choice, because if you're feeling like a victim, you're feeling like you don't have a choice, and that's not true. You have a choice to do nothing. You're making a choice when you do nothing. You are making a choice when you allow someone to take your peace of mind from you. And again, don't judge it. Don't go down that rabbit hole, because then if you spend all this time judging yourself, then you're taking yourself away from taking action. Does that answer your question? I know that I
you
talk
sound
about
like me.
things.
How's that? Yeah, I like that. No, no, that's actually very good. That does well.
How do you know when somebody's ready to kind of transition out of your services?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a really good question. I don't force anyone. Like, I don't have packages or things like that, because
let's assume they're not running out of money and that kind of thing.
Okay.
When have they gotten it? Like, when did they get it? And like, how do you know, hey, you figured this out?
Well, I do. Well, a couple things. So I do work with short-term clients. Like, one that I'm working on has a very specific 6-month timeline. So we're working within that 6-month timeline. Then other people, it just, do they feel good to stand on their own? Have we fixed the major problem? And they might need to come back. If you need to check in a year, a couple years, I've had clients do that. They've had, for example, a life transition. okay, I've got this going on. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. How do I deal with it? And so I think when they feel confident and good and that they are ready to listen to themselves and their inner voice and to trust that, and then to move forward, and not to say they're not going to stumble or I don't believe in the mistake if you learn from it, but that they feel like they have the skills and the tools to be able to move forward and do it on their own.
Well, I'd like to think that there are some, and because I saw the topic and I'm like, okay, this is going to be really exciting because there's a lot of stuff going on in my head. It's just going there. So when you start talking about the mental clutter manifesting itself in the outer world, I mean, I guess it's basic coaching stuff, but there's a lot going on in the typical head. So do you have any principle, well, of course you do, guidelines when you're starting to work with a client, in a particular process that you go through that's more, I mean, I know you talked about you have your assessment and stuff like that, but just getting into their head and getting them to trust you so that they listen to what it is you have to offer, or that they're comfortable allowing you to probe into their lives, because I mean you have to do that, because how else do you find out otherwise? What is your do you have a particular process or manifesto, or I don't even really know what I'm asking, but how I don't know, let's say I come to you and I go, you know, Julie, my head is full of stuff. I don't really know what's going on. I get up in the morning and I come to my computer and I sit down and I want to do something. And then, 3 hours later, I'm still sitting at my computer and I'm looking at stuff and I just don't know where I'm stuck in that. What do you recommend, kind of a thing?
Well, then I'd want to know, for example, can you tell me what's going on in your head? So let's say, for example, you say to me, man, I am really worried about retirement. That has been weighing on my mind. I'm seeing all this stuff about Wall Street, and is Social Security going to be around for me? And it's okay. Fantastic. So you're worrying about something that's in the future. You can't control the future. You could win the lottery tomorrow. You could get an inheritance. You could lose all your money. Who knows? But you're out here in the future. So let's bring it to the present moment. You're concerned about retirement, and that's weighing heavily on your mind. What action can you take in the present moment? Can you give up your daily Starbucks? Let's start with one day. If you go to Starbucks Monday through Friday before work, let's begin giving up Starbucks for one day. And let's set that money aside. Maybe we save it. Maybe we invest with it. That's one action. Okay, who do you know that's smart with money? Who do you trust? Schedule a meeting to have a conversation for them. What are they doing for retirement? If you don't have someone you trust or know, what book? Can you get on Google and do research? Warren, what's his name, is the guy that seems to have, I say Beatty, but that's the actor. Buffett.
That Buffett guy, yeah.
Is the guru of, so can you read a book that he's done or check out interviews? What concrete action steps can you take? So that's just an example. If you share with me something else that's mentally going on, then we're going to go through with that, okay? Or if you say, I'm not a success. Okay, why do you feel you're not a success? And then maybe you share, well, I'm 40 and I'm still an admin. Did you wake up today? Do you have good health? Are you in a good relationship? And I want to start to offer you a perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I truly believe that. And so if you're ready to make a change, then hopefully you're in my orbit and we're working together. Now, I've had clients, I can think of a client that I stopped working with at the beginning of the year. Every suggestion shot down with a reason, just wasn't open to it, and that's okay. It's not right or wrong. I don't judge that. And finally, I had to say, I've offered you all these options and you don't want to take action. It's not worth your time or your money to work with me anymore. You want to work together in the future, please get back in touch with me, but it's just, I don't think you're in the right space right now. And maybe I'm not the right person. but it's not, if you're not going to make changes, if you're not willing to do the work, there's nothing else I can do for you. And I wasn't wrong. I wasn't the bad person. I was honest, and I tried different things. And, for instance, they were struggling financially. So I came up with all these options. And, one, I said, well, check out here in Raleigh. We have Lidl, and which is a German grocery store, and Aldi. And I said, I've started shopping there, and I've cut my budget by like 50%. And their response was, I don't like the people that shop there. And so, that we're less than or whatever. Okay. But if that's your attitude, I can't change that. And again, and that might be her attitude the rest of the life, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. But if you don't, again, you aren't aware and you're not willing to take action, then nothing's going to change. But you are, in that moment, you are making a choice not to do anything. And I really hope that people hear that, because we mentioned at the top about the news and not taking responsibility, and we want to blame it on someone, and fine, you can continue to blame, but your life isn't going to change. And if you're ready, it can change, but staying in that victim mode doesn't do anyone any good. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of the process. I think the challenge is everyone is so different and it's so organic.
I like some of the questions you ask. Sometimes it's nice to hear the mindset you come from when you, because we sometimes we assume that we have an answer for people when we're really not quite sure of the question yet. And, and that's been an awakening thing for me also. So, because everybody comes from a different place. So I would imagine are dealing with an incredibly diverse audience. So, just everything. If you had to give somebody some advice, people listening to you and they think they have these their voices in their head, and you talk spirituality. I was having a reading once, because I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I've had some sessions, and one of my gurus at one time said to me, it's really, really busy in your head. How do you quiet that down? Like, sometimes I don't. It just stops. But if I really get tired of it, I just tell it to shut up and I go do something. But if you had to offer some, I won't call it advice, wisdom, perspective for someone, if they were having some thoughts like that, is there anything they could do on their own to kind of evaluate where they are, or to be able to say, I've got a lot of mental clutter right now, and that's kind of what my problem is, and maybe I need to sort that out somehow. What kind of wisdom could you offer for that?
I would say, so am I offering wisdom, or am I offering suggestions for them to kind of self-evaluate?
You may choose. I mean, I'm good. I'm easy.
Okay. I would say have gratitude. I believe the universe, God, love and gratitude are the highest vibrations. And so when you're in gratitude, I don't believe you can have mental clutter. You're like, oh, I'm so grateful for this present moment. I'm so grateful for everything that I have in my life. Then, because we can't have, we can have a ton of thoughts, but we can't have more than one thought in the moment. So having gratitude, I believe, supports us in clearing clutter in all areas of our life. And so have gratitude. And if you're struggling, and look, my gratitude stank for the longest time until I had someone I was working up who kind of took a 2x4 and was like, stop. I want you to look around right now. Look at your home. Look at this. Look at that. And I think it probably was before I met my husband. I think I was like, because I really wanted to be in a relationship. So I was in a cranky space. So have that 2x4 in the head. Have gratitude. And if you're struggling, okay, I woke up today, because maybe someone who's going in for heart surgery isn't going to wake up today. So do you have a roof over your head? Do you have access to clean water? Do you have access to health care? And I realize not everyone listening might, but really bring it back to basics. Do you have enough food to eat? Do you have money in your bank account? Even if it's a dime, that's still money in your bank account. So I think gratitude is really important. Another thing that I believe is it all boils down to this, because you either have love or something else. And I believe that something else, whether it's hate, anger, jealousy, boils down to feeling not good enough, not worthy, or not loved. So I want everyone to hear this. No matter what, you're good enough, you're worthy, you're loved. I don't care if you were told as a child, you're a piece of garbage, you're not. That's someone else's voice. That's not you. That's not your soul. So believe and start to embrace you're good enough, you're worthy, and loved. Because when you do that, a lot of that chatter is going to go away. Because a lot of our mental chatter that I found personally and professionally is someone else's voice. That's not your soul speaking, because your soul loves you. Your soul is positive. It's not all that garbage that's up there. So gratitude, you're good enough, worthy, and loved. And then finally, I'd say be in the present moment as much as possible. Because I mentioned when we were talking about retirement, if you have worry about the future, you're in the future, or how many of us are in the past? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Why didn't I do that? And I'll tell you a great story. So I was giving a talk to a corporation, and I was so excited because they contacted me and they said, well, what can you talk about? And so I said, okay, I'm going to throw out the clutter your life and explain that it's not physical. And they completely embraced it. We're so excited because I thought, oh, it's a corporation kind of going to be buttoned up. So I'm giving this talk and I'm talking about being in the present moment. And there are probably, a couple hundred people there. And I said, stop. Who is here with me now? Who is paying complete attention and listening to what I have to say? And I said, how many are you thinking about dinner or your snack? And they kind of chuckled, and a few were brave and raised their hand. And I said, how many of you are thinking about that email you sent or that conversation with your spouse this morning? And they got a chuckle, but I think for some it was an aha moment because, okay, bring it back to the present. Your company has provided you with this awesome speaker. And I, again, gave him a little chuckle. And I said, if you are not fully here, paying attention, embracing that. So that would be the other thing I'd say, because if you're present, you can't worry about the future. If you're present, you don't have anxiety about the past. So bring yourself as fully present as possible. And that's not easy. And that takes practice. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then if you start to go down the rabbit hole, or I used to liken it to being on a bungee cord. Like I've dropped on the bungee cord and I'm, okay, stop. Yep. Take a deep breath. Where am I? Ooh, I was out in the present. Ooh, I was out in the present. Okay, bring myself from the past. And if you bring myself present. So those are my 3 quick suggestions.
I like that.
Hopefully that all made sense.
That present conversation keeps coming up. I'm a Eckhart Tolle fan, so he woke me up the first time with that. It was like amazing. So and Josh is smiling. That's good. Josh doesn't smile much. It's really cool. Josh, what you got over there? You're smiling there, bud.
Yeah, I'm right with you all the way here. I think we've reached that point in the podcast where I get to ask the question that everybody hates. Before we wrap up, and that's is there anything that you had hoped that we'd get a chance to speak about that we haven't asked you?
Oh gosh, I don't hate that question. though. I think that's the good news because you asked about taking action, which I think was important. I guess I would say I want to be clear about what my definition of clutter is, because again, I think that that's so important, that I believe clutter is anything that prevents you from creating the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And when you start to reframe and have a different perspective on what clutter really is, I think that can support you in becoming more aware. Oh my gosh, I never realized that not being able to say no was clutter for me, and all the anxiety and anger it caused me, and maybe it put me into debt because I was paying for someone else. So start, when you think about clutter, don't limit it to the physical. Make sure that you expand that.
Yeah, that's saying no thing's a big deal.
And a lot of us can't. I used to be a people pleaser, used to be a doormat, and I will share this story, so know that you aren't alone. I had to say no. I used to babysit when I lived out in Los Angeles, and I loved it. And there was a person that I babysat for, and they weren't good with the kids. The kids were neglected in a lot of ways, even though they were really wealthy. And I thought, I can't take this burden on. They aren't my kids. and they were wealthy, and I wouldn't get paid, and I stayed overnight, blah, 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 blah. And I finally had enough. So I made my friend come over and hold my hand. This is, 20 years ago, before we had smartphones and could ghost, or whatever the term they use is today. And I just said, I'm no longer going to watch your kids. And I literally made my friend hold my hand, and my heart's beating fast. And this is embarrassing. I'm in my 20s or early 30s or whatever it is, but I did it. And I asked for the help that I needed, and I went ahead and did it. So if you're like that, get a friend, grab their hand if they have to, but do what you need to do to say no.
And I bet your friend was totally fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, they weren't, I don't say they were dancing, but they knew that I had put a line in the sand, and I thought, what, get someone else. And I didn't, again, you have to pick your battles. Is someone to be open listening? And had they engaged in a conversation, I would have shared, you're in this divorce and you've got this new girlfriend, and I believe you're neglecting your kids. And because it was just so apparent to me how these children just needed love and attention, and I gave that to them. But again, I'm not their parent. I would have engaged in a conversation. They weren't interested. They just said, okay. And that was it.
Right.
But they accepted it. Had I hemmed and hawed, I think if I hadn't been, no, I'm not doing this, being direct and clear, I don't know if they would have heard me.
Right.
So how to say no and not explode. That should be your new book. Yeah. So
I'm working on some books. The goal is January.
Oh, now that we mentioned that, I guess I better be working on mine. So Josh is still on the list. Still on the list.
Yeah.
Josh and I gave each other New Year's resolutions, things to do. So he's moving full ahead on his. I need to catch up a little bit with mine, because I can't have him New Year's next year talking about the resolution I didn't do last year. I can't take that kind of pressure from him.
You've got 6 months, my friend. 6 months to end of
That's it. It's Leon Day,
I know.
Today,
I'm just saying.
Leon, National Happy Leon. Yeah.
One step at a time. You can do it. Break it down into manageable steps.
There you go. That's what I wrote on my thing this morning. Look at that. You've been reading. Have you been listening to my podcast? No.
I have.
Excellent.
I have to admit.
Well, cool. I'm good. What do you think? That was.
Yeah, Julie, what's your website? What's your podcast? Where do you like to hang out on social? Where can people find you?
Thank you. It's reawakenyourbrilliance.com, and that's all one word. My podcast is not going to be a surprising title, is Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. And you can find links in the top right corner. You can subscribe to the podcast, but I'm all over Facebook, Instagram, although if you do follow me on Instagram, you will see a lot of cat pictures. YouTube, I also do a video cast, so I record the podcast. So if you're more visual, it's Julie Coraccio on YouTube, but we've got all that at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
Great. We'll have show notes over on jkwdpodcast.com with links to everything.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I just want to say that it's a lot of work, time, and energy to do a podcast, so give a shout-out to your host, and if you haven't, rate and review them, because we have a lot of keyboard warriors out there, and people don't realize the passion and the time and effort it takes. So give a shout-out for your host.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Have fun.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye.
A Better Humanhood production.